just going to give a few more minutes while everybody settles in and a few more of our participants come trickling in, and we'll be starting shortly. All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for our New York City Data Science Academy Ask Me Anything event. We are live streaming in all parts of the globe. So depending on where you are, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's a pleasure for you to be joining us today. My name is Noah Escobar. I am the Assistant Manager of Enrollment for the Admissions Department. It's a pleasure to virtually meet everyone. And once again, thank you for joining me in this amazing panel of speakers. We look forward to sharing more on the remote live online bootcamp experience and of course, addressing your questions. Before we start, I wanted to make sure we keep today's event as engaging as possible. So please be sure to hop on our chat box and let us know which city you are joining us from. Also, please be sure to use our chat box for any questions that you have during the event, and be sure you have it set to all panelists and attendees. That's very important. That way we are all able to view your questions and address them. You can also drop your questions using the Q&A box found at the bottom of your screen. So a few housekeeping items before I begin. As I mentioned, our team is on standby to answer your questions, so feel free to drop in on the chat or Q&A box section. Second, we are recording today's event, so you will be able to watch today's AMA event on demand in the event you want to revisit today's discussion, or if you feel you missed anything. We will provide a recording once our event has completed. As I mentioned, we have a great panel to present more information on the remote live online experience. You'll also have an opportunity to hear directly from a few of our students on their bootcamp experience. And of course, we will have our AMA time at the end of the event. So before we get started, I would like to share some information on our school. The New York City Data Science Academy is an educational training and career development institution that offers both in-person and online data science bootcamp. The New York City Data Science Academy is the only data science bootcamp teaching both Python and R programming languages. I am also very proud to mention that for 5 years running, we have been named the best data science bootcamp, and for 2 years running, the best online data science bootcamp by SwitchUp. Not only do we provide lifelong career support through our 500+ hiring partners, our students, including our 2,000+ alumni, receive hands-on experience with our 4 industry projects, including a capstone project, which allows them to create and extend their professional portfolio. So that definitely is a huge advantage as you prepare for the next steps in your career. Our online bootcamp is offered both full-time at 16 weeks and part-time at 24 weeks to meet the needs of our students. We also offer professional development courses that range from 4 to 6 weeks. And of course, we are here to learn more about our remote live online bootcamp, which is being offered in substitution of our in-person bootcamp. For those of you who are interested in furthering or beginning your career in data science with the New York City Data Science Academy, the admissions process is very simple. You begin by submitting an application on our website, and I do encourage applicants to share their academic and professional background, as it allows the admissions team to learn more about you and prepare for the next step, which is an interview. And after you submit your application, you'll schedule an interview with an admissions officer. Once your interview is complete, you will receive a technical assessment. The technical assessment will allow us to learn more about your technical and analytical skills. And once your assessment is received, we review all your information and provide you with a response on your application and possible next steps. For those who are interested in enrolling in our upcoming cohort, I do encourage you to submit an application. The start date for the next bootcamp is on July 6th, and the application deadline is on June 19th. You do want to give yourself enough time to get through the admissions process and complete the pre-work material. I look forward to receiving your applications for review and virtually meeting with you to discuss your future with the New York City Data Science Academy. Thank you for your time and attention. And now I'd like to present you with Thomas Leitch, who is one of our instructors for the New York City Data Science Academy, and you'll be speaking more on the remote live online experience. Thomas?
Oh, yeah, thank you very much, Noah. So in case you're curious which one is Thomas, it's me. I'm the one wearing the New York City Data Science Academy t-shirt and the one with the New York City Data Science Academy t-shirt behind me. I am an instructor here at NYC DSA. Let me tell you a little bit about myself before we go into the slides, just so you have an idea who I am. Not only am I from New York City now, originally from Tucson, Arizona, but I came into the New York City Data Science Academy as an instructor back in September. So I have been here long enough to have experienced both the in-person boot camp, the transitional cohort boot camp where we spent half in person and half online, and now finishing up our first full live online cohort with us. And so it's nice that I can talk to you about this transition because I have experience with it. About my background somewhat, from Tucson, Arizona, there I did a triple major in math, physics, and astronomy at the University of Arizona. From there, I went and got my PhD in math from the University of California. I saw somebody here was from Connecticut, and I also went to Connecticut after California, where I was an assistant professor there. I'm still doing mathematical probability and geometry and these sorts of abstract things that I couldn't talk to my family about at the dinner table. In fact, I was sort of at some point in time in Connecticut, probably at the same or similar sort of mentality that many of you are, because I was there. Oh, awesome. A University of Arizona grad, go Wildcats. Bear down, right? So I was there, and I was kind of, wanting to discuss what I do at the dinner table with my family and be able to use real data and make real conversation and make real impact. And so I kind of was having a conversation with one of my friends who was a student at New York University at NYU. And he let me know about a position there that had opened up at the Center for Data Science. So there's sort of like, there were 3 big hubs in these ivory towers of universities that had data science. And it was NYU, Berkeley, and University of Washington, which is a different conversation. But nonetheless, I ended up becoming a researcher at the Center for Data Science at NYU. And I was there for 3 years, a little bit over. And I was working on statistical criminology. And I'd be happy to talk more about that too offline if anybody is interested. But during that time, I sort of, became a data science, built up my skill at data science. And then the lab I was working in moved to Princeton. And then I sort of had this crossroads where I didn't know if I wanted to go to Princeton with them or if I wanted to sort of get my feet wet in the industry. And so I made this jump into industry. I made one application. I applied for one job going away from the ivory tower, and that was to the New York City Data Science Academy. And to make a short story long, I am now here with you to discuss it some. So that's a little bit about my background. And for those who are coming into the bootcamp, my main area of focus is the Python machine learning part of the bootcamp. So as I'm sure our student panelists will tell you, you will definitely have a lot of interaction with me if you do come here. Okay, so what I would like to discuss at least in start is I kind of want to give you a theme, and it's something that I've tried to tell our current students. There's something that I tried to tell the previous cohort as well as we were making the transition to live online due to the pandemic, is that this word remote, it can kind of be misleading because remote kind of sounds alone, but the truth is, in this live online, framework, you do work remote, but we're doing it all together. So really there's still this community there, even though every person is remote. And, as we'll discuss more on these slides, you have to have a live instructor, just like you have me live here with you in a classroom with your peers, asking questions, experiencing interactions. And so honestly, let's just keep that in mind throughout this, that we use the word remote, but really this live online is still a community classroom, and we're doing it together. On these slides here, I want to sort of compare and contrast a little bit about what it is that, what we have in the in-person versus this live online. And certainly there are some comparisons here, but, of course, you're going to get the same curriculum, right? We're going to have the same material, the same lectures, the same instructors. And of course, you're going to have student interactions, not only in the classroom, but in projects, which we talk about later. You have hands-on exercises. And in fact, something that's a little bit nice about the live online is because intrinsically we are all in front of our computers, it's not that you look up at a projection screen and back down at the computer while, to do your work. You can actually have side by side the code that you're doing, the lecture that's going on, look at the professor's code, et cetera, et cetera. And so there are some benefits to this live online as well, in particular that you are hands-on with a computer during the entire event. But, to be honest, there is, let's compare a little bit of something else that I was kind of nervous about when we made the transition to, one thing that you do get in person is the ability to sort of bump into each other in the hallway, right? Or see each other in an elevator, sit around a table while you're eating lunch. And so that sort of facilitates particular conversations, right? And so there's this sort of vector of communication that happens when you are amongst each other in the same room, in the same building. And so I was nervous about how to deal with that, how we would deal with that, how would we would compensate in this way. And, the truth is, you can't put people in an elevator together. You can't make them bump shoulders. You can't make them have lunch together. But we approach this, still in a way to try to open up, because really that whole conversation is a conversation about communication. And so as we go forward, it's true that there is this communication piece, right? There's this piece of communication that we want to try to not necessarily emulate, but give it to you in a way that, as everybody started working remotely during this pandemic, we all have started to grow into, right? And conversations with Zoom, conversations with chats, conversations with Google Hangouts. But what we offer through Zoom now is we have classrooms available, right? There's a classroom 1, there's a classroom 2. And of course, as we get to the panels, you're more than welcome to talk to the students about this as well, to talk about how it has worked for them. But that being said, we still have a forum. It's sort of, it's not just the classroom that you go and listen to a lecture. It's a classroom you sit in when you're working on your computer. You sit in with your other classmates, anybody that brings up a question, either say by asking a question, by unmuting the mic or whatnot, and asking that out loud, or by entering a chat, or by, in fact, asking an instructor during office hours or a TA during office hours. There is still some area, some room for collaboration amongst everybody, so that you can have these conversations that I was worried that we would miss, but it seems like we've all evolved together to be able to take those conversations and have them in these classrooms that we've set up. And then, you might also be concerned about being in front of the other 25 people in your classroom. And maybe during that time, you will have something like, what if I have a private question for the instructor? Well, we have methods for that as well. So you could ask for a breakout room. And this is actually just a private dedicated section of the classroom that sort of pulls you away into an office. You can sit in there with an instructor, you can sit in there with a TA, you can sit in there with your peers, whatever have you, but there is still this ability to sort of move away from the crowd en masse in these breakout rooms if you'd like to have a discussion that way. But we are also, I cannot sort of undersell how often we use Slack, because Slack is this text message based sort of app that we use that anybody is, you have a dedicated channel for whichever classroom you're in, but you also have it as a channel to communicate directly with instructors, communicate directly with TAs, and communicate directly with the other students that are in there. And so, I can't tell you how many keystrokes I have spent on Slack trying to answer questions and have responses and have real conversations, some of which then ended up in a in a Zoom conversation or whatnot. But the point is that there is a lot of communication that happens in person. But even though we approach it differently than we would if we were in an elevator, a lot of that communication is still available. And it takes a little bit of a different kind of coercion of our mentalities to be able to do this in front of a computer. But that's something sort of we're all evolving into together. And so it's something that if you take advantage of, right, you don't lose those conversations. You don't lose that interaction with the professor. You don't lose that interaction with the TAs, and you don't lose that interaction with your peers. And something else to note, and this is the same for in-person or live online, is that there is an in-house built up learning management system, which I'll refer to as the LMS because I love initialisms. So this LMS is a way for you to sort of track your educational progress, right? You want to keep up with your readings. You want to watch videos that were pre-recorded of the material before going to the class or after going to the class if you want to get a couple different perspectives of that particular material. If you want to look at your grades, if you want to sort of see what things are coming up or what things have left behind, or if after you graduate the bootcamp, if you want a refresher on the material, you have access to this LMS. And so the truth is this learning management system that we built up is sort of like your personal aid, your ability to kind of keep in touch with your own progress. And of course, we on the administrative and instructional side, we also keep up with this as well and make sure that you are proceeding as you should and on keeping, hitting your milestones and your deadlines and stuff like this. But really, this learning management system is pretty awesome. And we had a great team that worked on it, and that, of course, you could meet at a different time if you were so inclined. And this, this slide is talking about support. And, I told you that I had made this decision to kind of transfer to this boot camp. And really, this felt like a very natural jump for me, which is why I didn't really go out and just canvas everywhere with my resume. But one of the things that really attracted me to pushing for this position was because I saw the support that there was between students, and I saw the support there was between the staff and the instructors and everything like this. It's actually something that is very admirable. I don't say that to just advertise the boot camp. I say it because it really is what attracted me to this position. And so, on sort of an academic end, you always have academic support by TAs being in these Zoom classrooms with you very frequently. You can ask questions, you can ask for clarifications, you can ask for help with your code, debugging, etc. But you also have this with instructors. All our instructors are almost very personally familiar with every single student that comes through here. And a lot of that is this face-to-face time we have during either classroom time or office hours or what have you. But that's not kind of where the support is ending for you, right? Like, you have the academic support for sure. And you have this sort of familiarity and comfort communicating with the teaching assistants and the instructors, sure. And in fact, even on the fourth point here is the bootcamp coordinators. This is, you could have conversations with them that aren't specifically academic in nature, but just more structural about it. But you have support following you after this boot camp as well, because you have this career services support and you have student services support. And this is something that also should not be sort of undersold at all, because we spend 3 months training you, helping you build up tools, helping you learn the material, learn how to apply that material, et cetera, onto this bigger, into the data science arena. But after that too, I mean, most people join this because they want to make a transition in their lives, or if they want to switch careers, whatever it is. And it's great and it's excellent to have this rigorous foundation with this built up curriculum that we have, which I'd also be more than happy to talk about in detail during, say, the AMA. But you also have support from our career services personnel who help you make that transition, who give you guidance after it. one thing that's sort of disappointing, and one of the reasons I didn't love, working in the data science arena in the academic side of things, is because typically at these ivory towers, once you graduate, you're just sort of released into the pond and made to flounder to try to find your job. But here at the bootcamp, really the moral is that our success is tied sort of very much to your success. If you get a job, that is excellent for you and it's excellent for us, right? And so there's this symbiosis that happens where your success is our success and vice versa. And we work hard and put a lot of resources in to helping you get successful from, I'm sure you can ask more about this amongst our career support staff, but you get, not only support in reminding you about these tools and future work on these tools, but interview preparation and facilitating meetings between you and different industry professionals and corporate partners. So I know I spent a long time on the career service part, but it's something that should not be sold short, because it really is sort of that piece that takes you from learning the tools to applying those tools in a real life situation through a job change or through a career change. Okay. And finally, so this is my last slide here, which is good because I would like a sip of tea afterwards. But in this slide, we're talking about projects and why does a projects get their own slide? And the reason is because although you get to keep up with homework and you get sort of benchmarks of how you're doing, where you're ahead or where you're behind on some midterms amongst each subject, really this bootcamp is a project-driven curriculum. And so what I mean by this is that, along the way, you're kind of always working towards a project, towards a goal. There's 4 total projects within this curriculum, and it starts out with some Python data analysis and R data analysis, whether you're working on web scraping. So this is, again, the project is called web scraping, but the idea is the following, right? Web scraping is one way to collect data. It's one way to get data that is out there, that's available, that we want to collect. But then you use the tools of A, web scraping, but B, the data analysis to tell interesting stories, to find interesting insights, to find things of value. The same thing with Shiny. When you're learning R, you can do data analysis with R. You can make, sort of beautiful visualizations, and Shiny gives you a way to present them not only to us in the institution, but actually to future employers, to your friends, to your family, I don't know, to your cat if you're like me, right? You have the Shiny app that gives you a server-based interactive tool to do exploration of data. And then going forward, what our students are currently presenting, as I'm sure Ali will tell you, and Dimitri too, is the machine learning projects. And here we give you a project where you can start, using the machine learning tools. And I know that's I know machine learning is a buzz, but really machine learning is also to support the storytelling from data and the insights and the observations and the value that you get from data. And so each of these projects, you get to use these tools, but you get to apply them much the same way that if you sit at home and practice an instrument, it's good. You can learn scales, but when you play, say, in a band, right, that's when you really get to sort of turn the wheels in a way that's real. And then finally comes the capstone. And the capstone, as you've been building up this arsenal, this tools, these insights, these business acumen, if you will, you get to the capstone project. And on the capstone project, we have direction for you. We don't, again, just say, do something cool. We give you ideas. Corporate partners come in and present ideas that you can work on your capstone project. And it is true that some of those collaborations between our students and the corporate partnerships has ended up in careers afterwards. And so this capstone project is where you kind of get to put it all together. It is where you get to show off not only that you can use the tools, not only that you can play the scales on the guitar, but that you can apply them, that you can actually make this transition into becoming a data analyst, a data scientist, or what have you. And so this is really why we have this project-driven curriculum, is because that step, right? That step of being able to play scales to being able to play in a band is what makes you marketable on the job market, because, it's great that you can play scales, but can you bring value? Can you find value? And do you have evidence that you can do that? And then these projects are that evidence. And so are the blog posts that all students are asked to make about them, and I think do make. And these are always dynamic, these blog posts, but you can any of you can go on to the New York City Data Science Academy blog and look at what our students have worked on, get a feel for the projects they've worked on, and see that it's not just playing scales, but it's actually applying this. It's applying this to real world situations, and it's helping find value so that you can show that you bring value so that you can make that career transition. So that's the end of my presentation right now, but I'm more than welcome to take any questions during the AMA section, and I will hand over the mic to whoever is next here.
That's me. Hi everyone. Thanks for that, Thomas. I know you mentioned, and I want to emphasize again how we really value the support aspect and try to provide as much support. As NYC DSA's Career Services Advisor, I'm fortunate enough to be able to work and help with students both during the boot camp as well as post-graduation in terms of job seeking and job placement related activities. So today we have two of our students that we've been working with very closely, and one of our alumni who actually volunteered to give you guys more of a direct understanding of what it's like to experience this boot camp. Today we have Ali, Dimitri, and Sunny. Would you guys be able to give us a little brief introduction and let everyone know, what your story is, how you came to the boot camp?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, so my name's Ali Rishti. I'll start in chronological order, I guess, about my background. I originally went to Brooklyn College, for those of you who are from Brooklyn, and I majored in psychology. That's still my first love, my favorite domain. I'm always thinking about human behavior, analyzing people. Neuroscience I minored in, and one thing I just didn't know during my time there was how do I apply my interests. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with that domain, and I took an intro to C++ actually at the time, but programming class toward the end of my undergrad degree. I realized I really enjoyed the assignments. I liked programming, I liked doing that. And my dream became, let me marry those two fields. Let me apply programming to the domain that I love. But I still had to catch up those skills of programming. So I minored in computer science, just enough classes to get me to my master's in computer science. I then did a 2-year master's at Brooklyn College as well. And it was nice. I would say it was a little bit theoretical. I think I missed out on some practical knowledge of computer science that maybe the majors would have gotten. But it was enough for me to get a job at JP Morgan as a software engineer for almost 2 years. And I think that did help me catch up my practical software engineering skills a bit. But something was still missing in, I guess, meaning for me. I was looking for that original, again, psychology, a way to, like, instead of finance, look at more social sciences. And I kept being pointed in the direction of data science because I love statistics also, and it was just a way to apply the efficiency of programming to statistics, the formal way of analyzing things, and which I could then take to the domain that I love. And upon looking for a way to study data science in a good way, I didn't want to do another master's. I discovered this boot camp, and out of all the boot camps I looked into, I liked that this one was, first of all, it had really great ratings and records, and I liked that it was specialized in data science as opposed to tackling a lot of broad subjects. And the more I looked into it, the more I understood about the instructors and the track records, the people who would get jobs afterward that I liked how those jobs looked. I just, I went into it, and I'm really very happy about it. And I'd love to answer any questions about that.
Awesome. Dimitri, did you want to give us a little bit of intro too?
I'll be brief. So my name is Dmitry Livanov, and I'm currently a student at the bootcamp. We're 8 weeks through, only 4 weeks left. Just very briefly about my background. The background is in finance. I worked in mid-market private equity in Europe for 15 years. After getting my MBA from the Wharton School at Penn. And as an investment manager, I've been working with the data teams and technology teams at the portfolio company level, ranging from warehousing, logistics to telecoms to machine translation startup, actually. And so, while I was working with the data teams, I got more and more interested in the stuff they do, actually in the substance, in machine learning approaches and technologies. And my interest got me to the point that I became excited about all this stuff. I do think machine learning will basically transform our lives, and they call it a new industrial revolution. I think rightfully so. It got me to the point that I decided to switch careers, and I made a research about how to make that change most effectively. I researched schools and boot camps, and I think this particular boot camp is the best platform to help me make that change. For many reasons that Thomas and Ali talked about. So we'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
And quickly, Sunny, what about your background? What's brought you here?
So my name is Sunny, and I was a student during the January to March cohort. So I was actually live for a couple of months, and for the last 2 to 3 weeks, we have to go online due to COVID. My background is also in finance. I used to be a bond trader / portfolio manager at Goldman. And then while I was, looking for ways to optimize portfolios and things like that, I realized that Excel is not powerful enough to do all those things. So I wanted to brush up on Python and R, and looked around for a lot of boot camps, and saw that this was a great boot camp, and I got the results that I wanted from the boot camp, in which I learned a lot. I built up on my stats degree, brushed up on coding. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. So Ali, I know as a current student, were you maybe at all concerned about the remote learning aspect, or how has that all been, for you?
Yeah, so it's funny, like some of my friends call me up and ask me, how's the boot camp going? They know I'm very busy. And they asked me, how is it being remote? Because it was originally supposed to be in person. And I said, listen, there's always pros and cons to every scenario in life. But that being said, I do actually see this as a blessing in disguise personally. And that's not just because I like doing work in my sweatpants comfortable. That's how I focus best sometimes, but it's not just that. First of all, living in Brooklyn, it would have taken me like about an hour each way to commute. So I like that I have 2 hours in my schedule that I can now control. If I want to rewatch a video of the lesson that we had that day or that week that I want just to review, I can do that, right? It's much easier to do that, having that extra time. I also like that I don't have to sacrifice the live interaction with the instructors that we still get to have. Instead of watching recordings that are recorded, we still get to participate in live classes with our classmates and everything. And I think one underrated feature about remote learning that I think is actually a big deal in the end is the Zoom, the chat box. You're able to, any student who has a question can just put questions in that chat box. And if you're iffy about a question, sometimes in real life, you might wait to see if the question gets answered. You might not end up asking that question, and it might end up, just getting buried by the next topic. But usually I've seen that my classmates and I, if we have any inkling of a question, we just submit it into the chat, because we know we're not disrupting the flow of the instructor. They'll get to that question whenever they want. It's there sitting there. Or sometimes a different instructor, for instance, Thomas, I remember the first couple of weeks of class, I would ask a technical question about Python or something, and we would just go down a rabbit hole in the chat, and it didn't disrupt anything, but I got that depth that I really craved. So I think all those features were things I wouldn't have necessarily anticipated in remote learning, but they make my experience remarkable.
Awesome. And Dimitri, also an online student, right? How has it been as far as being able to grasp the material and the content? Did it meet your expectations in that regard?
Yeah, first, I was going to echo the thing that Ali mentioned. So, those 2 hours or 2.5 in my case, because I would be commuting from North Jersey with the tunnels and everything. So, those couple hours per day do make a lot of difference. This course is demanding. It's a lot of coursework. I think the founder Vivian described this as 600 hours of hard work, and that's why the bootcamp was able to differentiate itself, I think, from other places and other programs. So we need extra time. That's one. Secondly, my first degree was in theoretical physics, so I was sort of on the quantitative side of things, but I was learning Python a few years ago, etc. But this boot camp, I think, in terms of its depth, both like on the theory front and the programming practical skills front, has exceeded expectations of me and many of my fellow students with whom we discussed this. This is a really deep program that covers the math behind all kinds of machine learning approaches, supervised, unsupervised. It covers Python and R, which are the two basic languages that people use in machine learning and data science. It places a very strong emphasis on the projects, as Thomas described. It's a major part of the curriculum, and you spend a lot of time actually tackling problems that have very direct relation to real world problems and situations that you will be encountering during the interviews and later at work. So I think the combination of all that makes it a very rewarding experience. I would say it wouldn't be effective if it was not demanding. So I feel like I spend so much time, and that's why it makes difference.
Great. And Sunny, I know you already mentioned, but you were part of that transition class, right at the end or the beginning of the ramp up with COVID shutdowns. And I guess, could you tell us about that process? Like, what was it like searching for a job at that time?
Yeah, so I didn't know COVID was going to happen, and I think that's the same for a lot of people. I really had to give my hands to Sienna and Vivian in helping me. I know Thomas kind of talked about the career services after the boot camp. There's actually a post boot camp kind of process for 4 weeks where they kind of help you brush up on interviewing skills, kind of reviewing all the theory and like the case studies and all those kind of things to kind of like handhold you into searching for a job. And I really appreciated that and found that very helpful. And when I was actually interviewing, and they also help you get connected to past alumni to see how they did their job search, but also in mock interviews as well. So all these things kind of accumulated in me ultimately finding a job a month after I left the boot camp. And not to say that it's any easier with COVID or anything like that, but it's definitely doable. And I think the boot camp definitely helped me kind of get all the tools that I needed to get through all the interviews, which I couldn't have done without the boot camp.
Awesome, thank you. And I know I did see one of the other questions. It was basically trying to outline, what does a typical day look like, at the boot camp? Do any of you guys? Maybe Ali, would you be able to talk more about that typical day?
Yeah, sure. Well, it starts at 9:30, which is it's not really that early actually. So there's some time if anyone's diligent enough to wake up early and review, but in any case, the lectures usually start at 9:30 up until usually 1 o'clock. We'll have lectures for that long with intermittent breaks. And we'll have a lunch break usually from 1 to 2. After from 2 o'clock to about 5 o'clock, it'll vary whether we'll be reviewing homework that we worked on with the TAs like Sunny, or we'll do a jump start session, let's say, which is like an hour length of a more less in-depth introduction to a new technology that's related to what we've been learning in general. Or we'll just continue lectures sometimes, or we'll have just like free lab time where we work on whatever it is we need to work on, because we do have a lot of work to do. And then usually after 5 or 6, which is the latest we go to, we have the night to ourselves. So, you know, I guess people eat dinner and things like that. But I know a lot of people spend time at some point in the night, let's say, reviewing or doing some homework, if, you know, if you have that. Yeah, and then the next day repeat.
Gotcha. And you actually have, Ali, you have another more directed question. Have you been able to transition to a job more connected to behavioral science? Has NYC DSA connected you with that industry?
So it's a good question. I haven't been focusing too much on job applications just yet, just because I'm focusing more on on learning and everything right now. I still have a month left of the boot camp. I think within this next month or toward the end of the month, I'll start like really formally applying. I have gotten reached out to, but I know that the application process can be also intense. So to be fair to my education, I haven't gone all the way with that yet. But I have to say, I do feel a lot more confident in programming and in whatever it is I'm looking for now versus before the boot camp. So to pursue that dream, I do feel a lot more confident. And why, I guess, like besides for learning and going deeply into these, the curriculum every day, the projects I find are very relevant and applicable to the jobs that I am interested in.
Awesome. And Sunny, would you be able to elaborate a little bit more on how the boot camp helped you land a career, or the kinds of services you took on after the boot camp?
So specific to me, I was trying to pivot a little bit away from finance and go more into consumer behavior and those kind of like data analytics jobs. So I was able to successfully pivot, and I'm now joining a fintech firm called Second Measure, where they take transactions data and pull out consumer behavior insights, and I'm joining their data team. And although that wasn't a direct introduction by the boot camp, they had me go through numerous interviews, and they looked very favorably upon the fact that I had NYC DSA on my resume. And just as when I was interviewing for other roles that I didn't ultimately take, Vivian was more than happy to introduce me to the hiring manager from those firms as well. So it was very comprehensive in the help that I got.
Awesome.
And Sienna, if I may ask, add on that. So
Great.
the job search and career services start very early. It's not that you take 12 weeks and then the last week you do some interview brush-ups, etc. It starts very early with the the resume reviews, multiple sessions, and people from the industry come and talk about how they found the job and who they need and what kind of roles are required. Vivian introducing some of the bootcamp alums to the students. And talking about the coding challenges, everything is in the end tied to this eventual goal to make you succeed in your job search and professional career. So even though we had only like 2/3 of the boot camp, but I feel like I can talk to anyone in the hedge fund world, for example, and already understand how the process would look like, which points to emphasize, which tools to emphasize, how to answer like all kinds of questions regarding the resume, etc. And I think this is one of the things that people frequently bring up when they compare, different places and boot camps. I mean, this particular data science academy combines the data science and professional services like right from the beginning, and that's a major sort of objective of the whole thing, which was very important for me when I made the decision.
That's a great point. Thanks, Dimitri. I think last question before we move on to the overall AMA time. Sunny, since you had that in-person and live online experience, what was that transition like? Did you find the remote live online experience work better or worse or just the same? Could you tell us a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I honestly thought that it was a very seamless transition from the live to online. Obviously, everyone was a little upset that, like, we could no longer see each other from day to day, but I think we still maintained the connectivity that Thomas was talking about through Slack, through Zoom, and the trying to reach TAs or instructors wasn't an issue, even though we transitioned to online. So I couldn't say, there's like the obvious pros and cons of being in person, but there's also the obvious pros and cons of doing remote. And I thought the transition was seamless, and I didn't mind the transition at all.
Great, thanks. Should we open up to all questions regarding admissions, career services, instruction, right? Any particular questions? Feel free to mention them in the chat, but. I know one, something I saw, what maybe was a big challenge that you faced during the bootcamp so far? Any three of you want to tackle that question?
I could, I guess, go with one. It's sort of a personal challenge. I don't know if everybody has this, but I guess sometimes I also did this in college. If I felt like I knew I was going to review the material after class, maybe I would, like, out of just nature, I wouldn't take it as seriously during class. But in the boot camp, I quickly realized that wasn't the way to go, because there's a lot of material and you don't want to have like rely on learning it after class. So once I got into the hang of applying my brain during class and going into the deep concepts in class so that I can engage with the instructors in live time, I overcame that. But that's something I always have to work at personally.
That's awesome. And maybe Thomas, would you be able to answer the student to teacher ratio?
Sure. So in live online, we still keep the same student to teacher ratio. Absolutely. And it's not just because it's not like just a convenience thing. It's because it's a best practice for this type of instruction, right? Because even though it's on Zoom, we are all still in the classroom, right? And so everybody deserves their sort of fair shake towards a question or towards a message or something like this. So yeah, we still hold the same student to teacher ratios for sure.
Great. Any other questions? I guess maybe something that might be helpful when you guys came to the boot camp, was there anything that you wanted to have known prior to actually committing to joining?
I could try to. I would probably spend more time getting to know R, because I had some experience with Python, but R is a completely different language, and I think I underestimated, how deep we will go with R, and so if you decided that you want to make this transition or become a data scientist, spend some time before the boot camp just trying to get to know some of the concepts. It may be so something on the math side, or something on the tool side like Python and R, but get as ready as possible, because later you will probably not have time to cover the basics. You will be more effective if you already are fluent in those things.
Okay, and I guess this goes to any one of you as well again, but when it comes to posting those video lectures, I guess how early are you able to review it before, or do they ever get taken down?
So there's a few different video postings, right? There are the video postings that are from your specific lecture, And then there are the video postings that are sort of our in-house prepared ones that are available on the LMS if you want to pre-watch or post-watch something just from that lecture from others. So in the LMS also, there's this forum, and in that forum, we sort of keep the day's lectures so that students can go and review the actual lecture that they saw. But there's also sort of a slightly more curated side of things where we have lectures that are prepared that students can go in and watch as well. And those are all accessible through that LMS that we've built out. I hope that answers the question. Yeah. Yeah. So I know you're moderating here, Sienna, but
Yeah.
you know, one of the interactions that I was like, oh, I hope Ali talks about it, is you guys get together for happy hour sometimes too, right? Like after,
I was waiting for an opportunity to mention.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. So it's not, I mean, it's not just academic, right? We actually do build up a unified culture here as well. Right. Just to note, we're
really a great point. Yeah. Thanks, Thomas. I know the bootcamp, they offered those kinds of get-togethers. What was one of them that was your favorite, Ali?
I mean, my own classmates, we made a tradition of after every project. Actually, that should be today because we're just finishing our projects. But we get together for like a Zoom happy hour, and I find that's really fun. You know, we get to like just loosen up a little bit. We played a game once, get to know each other more. Also, in terms of getting to know each other, like I think the group project that we just finished, we get 2 group projects. We did 1 so far. I think that goes a long way in like, you know, in interacting with each other. Yeah, and I happen to really like I admire my cohort.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're able to still be social and interact with each other, you know, even through the online piece of it all. I know, there was one question actually directed probably to Sunny, would be best to answer. In terms of networking online, how did those networking events go?
Yeah, so I had an experience with a couple networking events online and offline, and I thought that, you know, it was kind of like a Q&A session, and it was either past alumni who now have jobs at like Amazon, and it seemed to go well, and I got all my questions answered, and they were very attentive to answering everyone's questions in these networking and like guest lecture events. I guess on the personal side of one-on-one networking that I did in order to find a job, people are very understanding if you reach out to them and like ask them about, you know, their company or like, you know, their data team and like how their hiring looks like during these conditions. So I think people are generally open to networking with you, especially since if you attend this bootcamp, then you're very actively showing that you have an interest in data and machine learning. So I thought those went pretty smoothly in terms of interactions and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, great. I know there's about 5 minutes left. Was there anything else that you guys felt, you know, would compel you a little bit more, or things that, you know, sharing in that experience, what was it like for you guys to choose this path? Dimitri, you want to take that?
You know, generally, I think it's a very intensive and, as I said, you know, gratifying experience. Getting to know lots of, you know, smart, interesting people, both from, you know, from the students and the instructors, and getting this, I would say, you know, the life feel of what's, you know, data science is for someone who is not from that field, you know, just understanding, you know, types of people and questions and tools and problems. So I feel like it's you know, a true immersive experience that should prepare anyone well for, you know, real life career. So that's my overall experience so far, and I'm sure, you know, the remaining 4 weeks will be even more demanding and challenging because we're you know, getting closer to our final project. So that's I think, you know, it's been a good 8 weeks.
Okay, awesome. I see that some of you are using that raising hand function too. So Tracy, are you there? I believe we've unmuted you. Can you hear us?
I can.
Awesome. Hi, Tracy. How are you today?
Doing well.
Great. So what question do you have for us?
I think I just had a question for the students just to understand a little bit about, in terms of the decision to enroll in this school, it sounds like it was always born out of some kind of professional desire or potentially a crisis. And I'm just wondering, I know about how everybody decided to look forward, but looking back, what was there sort of something that propelled them into data science, whether it was just sort of something either about their own personal understanding of what that world was. It sounds like maybe it was also a little bit about some aspect of it in the job world. And I'm wondering if anybody decided to kind of move forward with this purely just for the idea about longevity in a career, as everything in the world is changing so quickly. I was just wondering if anybody was just trying to be a little bit more strategic in a way about managing their own career, getting into something that they thought would have some longevity as everything is changing so quickly.
I could kind of maybe give my version of the answer to this question. I mean, like, obviously there was like the job and like career changes and things like that that I wanted to personally make. But then looking at my, I guess, like portfolio management and trading kind of environment, I realized that without these, like, without knowing about Python programming and like being able to, I guess, consume external data in a very efficient way, I was probably going to get like people are going to come and replace me eventually in a couple of years with this data set along with their investment management knowledge. So that was just kind of how I thought of also kind of getting ahead of the curve. And then throughout this experience, I realized that I don't really necessarily want to go back into pure finance, and kind of made that career switch that way. So to your point, yeah, I kind of saw that my own, I guess, like finance world was changing and wanted to get ahead of the curve. And you do see that like the data science world is evolving, but like kind of maturing versus how it was in like 2017. So I think now's a great time to do it if you need to.
Great. That's a great answer. It gives me a lot of, it gives me the detail that I was looking for to understand why somebody in a situation like yours would have moved forward with something like this. So I appreciate that.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Tracy, for joining us.
Yes.
And I know we're nearing towards the end of this cutoff time, but if any of you guys have additional questions, feel free to message us. We're happy to get back to you. And I hope you all found this session helpful in answering your questions. There are a couple of more events coming out throughout the week if you want to attend those. I think there's a growing as a data scientist and the role of communication talk with Alexander Sankoff. I think that's happening tomorrow, but feel free to check our Eventbrite page if you want to attend. If you have any questions, again, please let us know. But hope you all have a great rest of your day and hope to speak with you all soon. Thanks, everyone.